And then to bump into the man and, with his, I said, what you got under your arm, man? And it's a Muddy Waters, the best of Muddy Waters, and Rockin' at the Hops by Chuck Berry.
Mick Jagger, the legend who danced between pure glory and total chaos. Few rock icons have ever lived with the same wild energy and fearless spirit as him. From leading the Rolling Stones to co-writing some of the most unforgettable anthems in rock history, Jagger became more than a superstar. He became a symbol of rebellion, passion, and excess. He's also the father of 8 children with 5 different women, proving that his life offstage was just as intense as his time under the spotlight. His story is drenched in scandal, obsession, and pure unpredictability. Behind those dazzling stage lights hides a man who spent decades walking a tightrope. Fame on one side, heartbreak, and bad decisions on the other. Add in addiction, love gone wrong, and public drama, and you've got the recipe for a life that never stopped shocking both fans and even his own bandmates. Now, at 81 years old, and after more than 6 decades rocking stages around the world, Mick Jagger finally pulls back the curtain and tells the truths that have been whispered about for years. These secrets have long been suspected but rarely spoken aloud. So let's dive into the extraordinary life of a man who didn't just make music, he changed it forever. Mick Jagger was born on September 26, 1943, in the quiet English town of Dartford, Kent. Back then, his full name was Michael Philip Jagger, and he entered a world still trembling under the chaos of World War II. Bombs, fear, and survival shaped the early atmosphere of his childhood. His father, Basil Joe Jagger, was a sports teacher, strict, disciplined, and determined to instill order in his sons' lives. He was even credited with bringing basketball to British schools, a small but proud claim to fame. His mother, Eva Ensley Mary, was a lively hairdresser with roots in Sydney, Australia. She filled their home with warmth, energy, and a passion for conservative politics, an influence that would quietly shape Mick's outlook in the years ahead. Together, they raised Mick and his younger brother, Chris, in a home that mixed discipline with freedom, structure with spark. It was that unique balance that helped create the sharp-minded, curious, and magnetic personality that would one day dominate the world stage. As a teenager, Mick found his escape through American blues records. He and his friends hunted down every track by Muddy Waters, Little Richard, and Chuck Berry they could find, treating those vinyls like sacred treasure. To them, this wasn't just music, it was raw emotion, rebellion, and truth, a doorway into a different world. Then came the moment that changed everything. On the morning of October 17, 1961, while waiting on Platform 2 at Dartford Station, Mick spotted a familiar face in the crowd, a meeting that would soon set fire to the world of rock forever. Keith Richards. 3 years had slipped by since he and Mick Jagger last crossed paths, but when fate threw them together again, it was like no time had passed at all. Mick was clutching a few of his prized records, Chuck Berry, Muddy Waters, the very heartbeat of American blues. The second Keith's eyes landed on those albums, something clicked between them. That random meeting wasn't just a friendly reunion, it was the spark that would ignite one of the most powerful partnerships in rock and roll history. From that day on, they couldn't stay away from each other. Mick and Keith spent hours jamming, spinning records, and dreaming of a sound that would shake the world. Soon, they reconnected with Dick Taylor, and along with Alan Etherington and Bob Beckwith, they formed a small but hungry group called the Blues Boys. These guys were obsessed. They practiced non-stop, chasing that gritty, soul-drenched Chicago blues vibe that had stolen their hearts. While most kids their age were hanging out at dances or football games, Mick Jagger was after something way bigger. A feeling, a destiny, a fire he couldn't ignore. Still, he didn't drop his studies right away. At the time, he was attending the London School of Economics, having earned a state scholarship thanks to his sharp mind and discipline. He dove into finance and accounting, and for a while, it seemed like he might take a more traditional route, maybe politics, journalism, or business. Jagger even admitted later that he was seriously considering those paths. He once joked that being a politician wasn't so different from being a rock star. Both needed confidence, charm, and a gift for commanding a crowd. But deep down, the blues had already claimed his soul. No classroom could match the rush of crafting a new riff with Keith Richards. No lecture could compete with the raw electricity of a jam session. As time went on, their informal rehearsals as the Blues Boys started to turn into something much bigger. The energy was undeniable, and it didn't take long before they teamed up with Brian Jones and Ian Stewart, expanding their lineup and evolving into a force of pure rock chaos. Those early sessions weren't carefully planned. They were driven by hunger, instinct, and passion. And out of that fire, a name emerged that would soon echo around the globe: the Rolling Stones. The band wasn't born out of strategy or fame-hungry ambition. It came from the raw desire of young men chasing a sound so powerful it couldn't be contained. Their story wasn't just about music. It was about rebellion, survival, and a refusal to play by the rules. The real journey began on July 12, 1962, at the Marquee Club on Oxford Street in London. That night, they didn't even have the name Rolling Stones yet. It came shortly after, inspired by a Muddy Waters song they all worshipped. Their instruments were mostly borrowed, with help from Alexis Corner of Blues Incorporated, and the setup was rough. But their energy? Explosive! The lineup that night was iconic. Mick Jagger on vocals, Keith Richards and Brian Jones on guitar, Ian Stewart on piano, Dick Taylor on bass, and Mick Avery, not Tony Chapman despite the rumors, on drums. The pay was tiny, but something legendary was brewing. Word of their fiery, unpredictable performances began to spread fast, and soon, London couldn't stop talking about them. By the end of that same year, the Rolling Stones were no longer just a local band. They were a rising storm ready to conquer the world. The Rolling Stones scored a 5-month residency at the Ilford Island Hotel, a wild, bohemian hotspot floating on the River Thames. That gig was more than just a steady paycheck. It was a training ground where the band sharpened their sound, tightened their chemistry, and learned how to own the stage like true rock soldiers. Every night, they played their hearts out, building that rough, electric energy that would soon define their legacy. Then came the man who would change everything: Andrew Loog Oldham. Barely in his 20s, Oldham had the instincts of a marketing genius. He didn't just see a band in the Stones. He saw a revolution waiting to happen. While the Beatles charmed the world with suits and smiles, Oldham shaped the Stones into their dark reflection, edgier, louder, and dangerously untamed. He made them look like the kind of guys your parents warned you about, and fans couldn't get enough of it. But Oldham's real magic move wasn't just image, it was inspiration. He pushed Mick Jagger and Keith Richards to start writing their own songs instead of just covering American blues. At first, they were hesitant, unsure if they could match their idols, but soon their creative spark caught fire. What came out of that collaboration would redefine rock forever. By 1965, they dropped hits like The Last Time and the explosive I Can't Get No Satisfaction. Songs that didn't just top charts, they rewired youth culture itself. Satisfaction was pure rebellion. That fuzzed-out riff, that defiant attitude, those lyrics about frustration and disillusionment. It became the battle cry for a restless generation ready to break free from the old world. The song stormed to #1 in both the UK and the US, and suddenly the Stones weren't just musicians. They were the voice of every young person tired of being told what to do. Hit after hit followed: Paint It Black, Ruby Tuesday, and Let's Spend the Night Together. Each one pushed boundaries, stirring controversy, and giving fans that thrilling sense that the Stones were saying everything society tried to silence. But with fame came a shadow. The spotlight that once lifted them up now exposed every scandal and secret. In 1967, British tabloids went hunting for trouble. A series of explosive exposés tore into the private lives of pop stars. And soon, the Rolling Stones were the prime targets. The first article attacked Donovan, but the second aimed straight at Mick Jagger, claiming he'd been caught using drugs in a London club. Turns out, the reporter had mistaken Brian Jones for Mick, but the damage was already done. Soon after, police raided Keith Richards' Redlands estate, turning what should have been a private gathering into a public circus. Jagger and Richards were both dragged into court on minor drug charges, but the trial became a full-blown cultural showdown, the establishment versus the youth. When the verdicts came down, Jagger got 3 months in prison, while Richards was slapped with a full year. Punishments meant to scare the entire counterculture into submission, but it backfired. The public erupted in outrage, seeing the band as victims of hypocrisy and unfair treatment. Even the Times newspaper, led by editor William Rees-Mogg, came to their defense with an unforgettable headline: "Who breaks a butterfly on a wheel?" Defiant, dangerous, and completely magnetic, that was the Rolling Stones. But behind the fame and fire came heartbreak. that cut deep. Brian Jones, the brilliant, restless multi-instrumentalist who co-founded the band and even came up with their name, was spiraling. He had once been the spark that fueled their sound, but now the weight of fame, personal troubles, and endless legal battles were crushing him. While the Stones soared to global superstardom, Brian was fading fast, lost in the chaos he'd helped create. By the summer of 1969, the tension had reached a breaking point. Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, and drummer Charlie Watts drove out to Brian's countryside home, Cotchford Farm in Sussex, to face the truth. It was time for a painful goodbye. During that tense visit, Brian quietly agreed to leave the band he had built from the ground up. It was the end of an era. The Stones were moving forward, and he was being left behind. Soon after, the group brought in a young, insanely talented guitarist, Mick Taylor, to fill the gap. But just weeks later, tragedy hit like lightning. On July 3, 1969, Brian Jones was found dead in his swimming pool. He was only 27 years old, joining the grim 27 Club that would later claim so many other icons. His death shattered the band to the core. Barely 2 days later, the Stones faced thousands of fans at a massive free concert in Hyde Park, an event that suddenly transformed into a memorial. The scene was surreal. Dressed in all white, Mick Jagger stood before the crowd and read from ADMITS, Percy Bysshe Shelley's Elegy for John Keats, a haunting tribute to his fallen friend. As he finished reading, thousands of white butterflies were released into the air, fluttering over the crowd like a cloud of souls taking flight. Then the band launched into Honky Tonk Women, a song that had been released just the day before, filling the park with music that carried both sorrow and strength. The concert became one of the most emotional moments in rock history. Part grief, part rebirth. But destiny still had darker twists ahead. Just months later, on December 6, 1969, came the infamous Altamont Free Concert in California, the event that turned a dream into a nightmare. It was supposed to be the West Coast's answer to Woodstock, peace, love, and rock and roll under the open sky. But from the start, things felt off. Riding high on the success of Let It Bleed, the Stones had hired members of the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club for security, a decision that would prove disastrous. The crowd was massive, restless, and tense, and the atmosphere grew darker by the hour. Before the show even started, fights broke out. As Mick Jagger stepped off a helicopter, a fan allegedly punched him in the face. The chaos was brewing, and when night finally fell, it erupted. During the song Under My Thumb, violence exploded right near the stage. A fan was killed in the middle of the madness, and panic rippled through the crowd. The band, unaware of the full extent of what had happened, kept playing, terrified that stopping might spark a riot. The entire nightmare was caught on camera in the documentary Gimme Shelter, forever linking that dark night to the band's history. Later, Mick Jagger confessed he had been terrified, haunted by the realization of how close everything came to total disaster. The media tore into the Stones, blasting them for the chaos, the choices, and the tragedy that unfolded under their watch. What was meant to be a celebration of freedom had turned into the darkest chapter of their career, and a chilling reminder that even legends can lose control of their own creation. What was supposed to be a celebration of peace, love, and music, the grand finale of the 1960s, turned into something far darker. The dream that began with Woodstock ended with Altamont, becoming a haunting symbol of the era's shadow side. Yet through all the smoke and wreckage, the Rolling Stones refused to crumble. They emerged from the chaos scarred but standing strong, survivors who had stared down tragedy and kept rocking. Their legend didn't just grow because of their music, it grew because they endured, walking through fire and somehow coming out louder, wilder, and tougher than before. Scandal after scandal, loss after loss, song after song, nothing could silence them. But the 1980s brought a new kind of storm, not from outside the band, but from within. It was the moment that tested the unbreakable bond between the Glimmer twins, Mick Jagger and Keith Richards. Through the 60s and 70s, they had been unstoppable, chaos all around them, yet magic every time they wrote together. They cranked out masterpieces like Sticky Fingers, Exile on Main Saint, and Some Girls, defining what rock music was. But as the new decade rolled in, the ground started to shift. MTV had exploded, changing the game completely. Suddenly, image mattered as much as sound, and that's where the clash began. Mick Jagger, always hungry to evolve, wanted to experiment with flashier sounds and striking visuals. He wanted to move with the times. Keith Richards, though, wanted to keep it real, Raw riffs, soul, and grit, the heartbeat of the Stones. Their visions clashed hard. When Mick launched his solo career in 1985 with She's the Boss, followed by Primitive Cool, Keith saw it as betrayal. The band's 1986 album Dirty Work carried that tension all over it. You could hear the cracks. The sessions were fractured, members recording separately, the unity that once made them unstoppable now slipping away. The feud turned personal and ugly. Keith, never one to hold back, began mocking Jagger behind the scenes, calling him Brenda and Her Majesty, sarcastic digs at what he saw as Mick's diva attitude and oversized ego. Years later, in his explosive memoir, Life, Keith didn't soften the blows. He openly accused Jagger of letting fame consume him, saying the frontman had started believing his own legend. But the truth was more complicated. Mick's ambition had always been both his power and his poison. His obsession with perfection and control often rubbed everyone the wrong way, including Keith. The two were fire and gasoline, couldn't live with each other, couldn't live without each other. Then came another sting that sent Keith fuming. In 2003, Mick Jagger accepted a knighthood from the British Crown, Sir Mick Jagger, a title that sounded almost like blasphemy for the world's most rebellious band. Keith tore into him publicly, calling it a sellout move that betrayed the Stones' outlaw spirit. That decision deepened the rift even more, turning their partnership into a Cold War played out in headlines. Still, behind all the bitterness, there was something deeper, a strange, unspoken loyalty that neither of them could break. Keith once summed it up perfectly. "We're not friends anymore. We're brothers, bound by music, history, and everything we built together. No matter how bad things got, their connection ran too deep to die. And that bond, forged in brilliance, conflict, and pure rock and roll chaos, kept the Stones alive when almost any other band would have burned out. For decades, Mick Jagger has been the ultimate symbol of what it means to be a rock star. His strut, his fire, his unshakable charisma commanding every stage on Earth. But behind the flashing lights, roaring crowds, and iconic riffs was a man whose private life was just as explosive as his performances. A life filled with passion, heartbreak, and a hunger that never seemed to fade. Despite all the fame, fortune, and flashing lights, Mick Jagger's real story was never just about rock and roll. It was about love, loss, and the complicated life of a man trying to balance the stage with the silent weight of fatherhood. Beneath the swagger and spotlight, he was shaped by deep connections, heartbreaks, and the struggle to be both a legend and a dad, a side of him few people truly understood. His first taste of real, lasting love came in the mid-1960s when he fell for Marianne Faithfull, the ethereal singer and actress who became both his muse and partner during some of the Rolling Stones' most creative years. Together, they were the face of swinging London, young, wild, and impossibly glamorous. They were the perfect picture of rebellion and beauty, living in a world drenched in music, fashion, and freedom. But behind that glitter, darkness lingered. In 1969, Marianne became pregnant with Mick's child, a daughter they planned to name Corinne. For a brief, shining moment, it looked like they were about to start a family and build something real beyond the chaos of fame. But tragedy struck hard. They lost the baby before she was born. The heartbreak shattered them both. Faithfull later described that time as a blur of deep sorrow when neither of them knew how to cope. Marianne withdrew into her own pain, struggling privately with the emotional wreckage, while Mick threw himself into work, burying his grief under the grind of songwriting and touring. It was his way of surviving, but it also created a wall between them that they could never break down again. That loss didn't just end a love story. It marked a turning point in Mick's life, setting a pattern of instability and emotional distance that would haunt many of his later relationships. In 1970, Jagger started an affair with Marcia Hunt, a striking American singer and actress with undeniable presence. The twist: she was married at the time. Their romance burned hot but brief, yet it left a lasting mark. In November 1970, Marcia gave birth to Karis Jagger, Mick's first child. That moment quietly opened a new chapter in his life, the start of his journey as a father, even as the world saw him only as the ultimate rock star. Though his relationship with Marcia Hunt faded, his bond with Karis remained steady. She became a grounding force amid the non-stop swirl of headlines, fame, and temptation. Whenever Mick's world spun too fast, his daughter reminded him of something real, something that couldn't be measured in fame or fortune. But soon, another chapter began, and this time, the whole world was watching. Mick crossed paths with Bianca Perez Mora Macias, a stunning Nicaraguan socialite with elegance, confidence, and presence that could match his own. When they tied the knot in 1971 in a lavish wedding in Saint-Tropez, it was pure spectacle, a global event of fashion, fame, and excess. Overnight, Bianca became Mrs. Mick Jagger, and the world couldn't get enough of them. For a short while, it looked like Mick had finally found balance, love, family, and the spotlight all shining at once. In October 1971, they welcomed their daughter, Jade Jagger, and for a fleeting moment, Mick seemed ready to embrace the calm. But peace was never something that stayed long in his life. By 1978, the fairy tale was over. Bianca Jagger had finally had enough and filed for divorce, citing Mick's endless stream of affairs. Years later, she would admit with raw honesty that their marriage had ended the very day it began. It was a chilling confession, a glimpse into the heavy price of loving one of rock's most irresistible yet unfaithful men. Behind the glamour, the parties, and the jet-set lifestyle lay a deep loneliness that fame could never hide. But Mick Jagger never stayed still for long, not in music, and definitely not in love. Barely pausing between heartbreaks, his restless heart found its next match in Jerry Hall, the radiant Texan supermodel with sunlit blonde hair and a confidence that turned heads everywhere she went. Their romance kicked off in 1977, a mix of fiery passion and larger-than-life personalities that somehow made sense in the whirlwind world they both lived in. Though they didn't make it official until a 1990 Balinese ceremony, later declared legally invalid, Jerry became Mick's longest and most significant partner, standing by him for over 20 years. Together they raised 4 beautiful children, Elizabeth, James, Georgia May, and Gabriel. And for a while, it truly seemed like Jagger had finally found something real, something steady. But as history had shown time and time again, even Jerry's patience and warmth couldn't contain Mick's wild streak. By the late 1990s, that same restlessness came roaring back. During this period, Mick began an affair with Luciana Gimenez, a Brazilian model and TV personality. The relationship led to the birth of his 7th child, Lucas Jagger, in 1999. And when news of the affair hit the press, it blew up his relationship with Jerry once and for all. By the end of that year, another chapter in Mick Jagger's stormy love life had closed, leaving behind more heartbreak, more headlines, and the same haunting question: who was the real man behind the myth? The world knew the rock god, the frontman, the scandal magnate, but few understood the quiet, complicated father beneath it all. From his early romance with Marcia Hunt came his first daughter, Karis Jagger, a calm, steady light in the middle of his chaotic world. While tabloids obsessed over his every move, Karis stayed out of the spotlight, serving as a grounding reminder of Mick's more human side, the part of him that sought connection, not just thrill. And of course, the echoes of his past still followed him everywhere. His relationship with Bianca Perez Mora Macias, the stunning Nicaraguan beauty who oozed both elegance and fire, had once captivated the entire world. Their 1971 wedding in Saint-Tropez was nothing short of a cultural explosion, a parade of stars, style, and excess that defined an era. The press couldn't get enough, calling it the event that crowned Jagger as rock's untouchable prince of decadence. That same year, their daughter Jade Jagger was born, a moment that briefly gave the illusion of peace and permanence. For a short time, it seemed Mick might finally settle into something lasting. But as always, the storm of fame, temptation, and restlessness was never far behind. The truth was clear. Mick Jagger could conquer the world, but love would always be the one stage he couldn't control. But the dream couldn't last. The non-stop tours, the temptations of fame, and Mick's wild, restless energy soon tore apart the illusion of stability. Bianca Jagger, fiercely independent and never one to be silenced, had finally reached her breaking point. In 1978, she filed for divorce, citing his endless infidelities. Later, she would admit with a sting of honesty that their marriage had ended the day it began. It was a brutal truth, the cost of loving a man who lived life at full speed, no breaks, no limits. But love never stayed away from Mick for long. By 1977, his heart and chaos found a new home in Jerry Hall, the glowing Texan supermodel with the golden hair, easy charm, and confidence that could match his fire. Their romance was electric from the start, passionate, public, and impossible to ignore. For 2 wild decades, they became one of the most iconic couples in rock history, living between red carpets and backstage madness. Their 1990 ceremony in Bali, though later ruled legally invalid, felt like a symbol of what they'd built, a love that seemed, for once, unshakable. Together, they had 4 children: Elizabeth, James, Georgia May, and Gabriel. And for a moment, the great Mick Jagger looked almost settled, even peaceful. It was the closest thing to home he had ever known. But the road never stops calling a rolling stone. By the late 1990s, Mick's uncontainable spirit pulled him into another scandal, an affair with Brazilian model and TV personality Luciana Gimenez. When the news broke, the world went wild. The relationship led to the birth of his 7th child, Lucas Jagger, and the headlines exploded overnight. The affair shattered what remained of his bond with Jerry Hall, and by 1999, another love had crumbled under the weight of fame, temptation, and the myth of Mick Jagger himself. The man who gave the world timeless anthems and unforgettable moments couldn't escape the chaos of his own heart. He lived fast, loved hard, and left behind stories that still echo through rock history. Mick Jagger remains a mystery, a living legend who turned every triumph and heartbreak into rhythm and rebellion. If you enjoyed diving into the wild, untamed life of Mick Jagger, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment below with your thoughts. What do you think drives a man like Jagger? Passion, fame, or fate? Let us know, and see you in the next video.